네, 안녕하십니까. 자유기업원 오늘 국제 인사 두 분을 초청해서 새로운 미국 트럼프 행정부와 또 우리 이재명 정부와의 이 관계 앞으로 상당히 많은 주목을 받을 거라고 예상을 되는데요. 특히 이 트럼프 행정부는 2기 행정부라서 과거에도 한번 우리가 경험을 했지만 이번에는 상당히 초반부터 강도 높게 한미 교류뿐만 아니라 전 세계적으로 많은 이슈를 만들고 있습니다. 우리가 미국의 변화에 대해서 이것은 항상 늘 주목할 수밖에 없고 또 미국이 이 새로운 세계 질서를 만들어 가는데 우리가 같이 동반자 역할을 담당해 왔고 앞으로도 또 세계 새로운 질서에 우리가 미국과 함께 주도적으로 함께 참여해야 되는 그러한 흐름이기 때문에 특히 이 이재명 정부가 이러한 미국과의 관계에 특히 돈독하게 한미 동맹의 강화 그리고 또 서로 상호 협력, 경제적 교류를 확대하는 방향으로 잘 협력할 수 있도록 하는 그러한 비전과 전략이 필요하다고 하겠습니다. 아울러 우리 정부가 이 경제적인 측면에서 많은 해외 자본이 대한민국에 대한 그 매력도가 좀 떨어지는 흐름이기 때문에 미국으로 또 많은 자본이 또 가고 있고요. 이런 부분에 있어서는 전략적으로도 한미 관계를 튼실히 하는 것을 통해서 대외적인 신인도도 높이고 코리아 리스크라고 하죠. 이 대한민국에 대한 불확실성, 이 위험도가 상당히 지금 높아지는 단계에 있기 때문에 이 부분을 보완해서 한반도가 믿을만하고 안정적인 투자처다라는 것을 대외적으로도 충분히 인식시킬 필요가 있습니다. 그래서 그 부분에 대한 이 한미 외교 관계는 매우 중요하고 또 앞으로도 우리가 해결하는데 좀 더 적극적으로 나서야 되는 그런 부분이라고 생각합니다. 다만 이제 무역 관계라고 하는 관계에서만 우리가 한미 관계를 바라볼 것이 아니라 폭넓게 새로운 해외 질서, 특히 동북아 중국을 포함한 동북아 질서뿐만 아니라 유럽과의 관계를 포함한 세계적인 질서에서 미국과 한국이 동반자로서 새로운 질서를 어떻게 선도해 나갈지에 대해서도 사실은 좀 더 심도 있게 정치 외교 군사 안보적인 측면에서의 협력을 강화하는 것이 현재로서는 더 상당히 장기적인 측면에 있어서의 비전을 제시한다고 하겠습니다. 이러한 모든 논의를 우리 로버트 요크 박사님과 그 다음에 케이시 라티거의 좋은 말표를 통해서 한번 청해 듣고 한번 우리 대한민국이 나아갈 길을 한번 생각해 보시길 바랍니다. 고맙습니다.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to you all. It has been Pacific Forum's great honor to work on the U.S.-South Korea bilateral relationship for many decades, and part of that responsibility means coming to Korea to talk about what our opinions are and what our views are about the peninsular security dynamics, but also to come here and to learn from people here. It really is the United States and its changes in position. South Korea's immediate challenge isn't so much China, and it isn't so much North Korea. The challenge is going to be dealing with the administration in the United States and trying to get on the same page with them. And that is because unlike Joe Biden, who wanted deeper ties at basically all levels, Trump continues to prioritize what is beneficial for the United States. And some in his administration, including in the Department of Defense, have talked about the possibility of changing the nature of the alliance. Free trade is another area that has seen a stark change. It is no longer seen as a broadly positive trend in the United States. And this is not just true of the current Trump administration. The previous Biden administration was also not a purist when it came to free trade either. There is, as noted, a openness to troop reductions, we believe, within the Trump administration toward the Korean Peninsula. And it appears, based on the hints that we've gotten, that the United States is not going to prioritize North Korean denuclearization the way it did during the first Trump administration, which had sought CVID, complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization, and wanted to see it done during the first Trump term. Now, based on some things that have been said by the U.S. Secretary of State, among others, it seems as though they are shifting away from that, and they instead want arms control or confidence building. Prevention of inadvertent war has actually been the exact words that the Secretary of State used in his confirmation hearings. And sad to say, North Korean human rights, I suspect, will not be a priority for this administration at all, given some of the cuts that have taken place at the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor at the State Department. So the challenges that South Korea is going to have in dealing with the United States and his administration is, for one thing, that there are going to be more changes in position and perhaps unpredictable changes in how this administration approaches its partners, South Korea included. And these could be on tariffs. Countries like Switzerland and India have already found out how quickly the mood can change on tariffs if the president is unhappy with how negotiations are going. And China, by contrast, has seen massive tariffs suggested and then delays in implementation. Russia was threatened with considerable sanctions and tariffs if it did not reach a ceasefire by a certain date. Now that date has passed and those consequences have not come. And even North Korea. We haven't seen it yet, but changes could come in how this administration approaches it, and there will need to be a certain agility in how South Korea responds to these changes. The administration in the US may also set higher demands on South Korea. They have reached, at least for the time being, a general agreement on what the tariff rate will be, but there is always the possibility of change. Again, there's the possibility of troop withdrawal. This brings opportunities. The first Trump administration brought its share of opportunities. It was an opportunity to recalibrate overall relations toward China, overall relations toward Taiwan as well. And there will be other opportunities during this administration, including for South Korea, including on deepening its ties with other countries that are facing similar challenges. South Korea could relate, I suppose, to Vietnam, to India, and to Europe in terms of facing pressure from the United States that it is not accustomed to facing. There is, amongst many South Korean politicians, the goal of wartime operational control, and that is something that I think the current conditions under a progressive South Korean administration and a America First administration in the United States, that is something that has real potential to be achieved over the next several years. So, and finally, there is the most recent buzzword in South Korea, MASGA, Make American Shipbuilding Great Again. South Korea is touting its own ability to contribute to American shipbuilding through its chaebol, its conglomerates. They have the potential to win American contracts and contribute to the achieving of the president's goals for the American fleet. Pacific Forum actually has commentary out about how that goal can be achieved and how South Korea can achieve it today. So if you go to our website, you can find that. In this time period, the recommendations that I would have for the South Korean administration: deepen ties with Europe, with Japan, with India, with Vietnam, countries that are also trying to adapt to this climate. There's no single country that's going to replace America as a partner, and there's no single country that's going to replace China as a market, for instance. But there are a collection of countries that can work together more closely. We do see the emergence of a multipolar world now, and that is the reality, and countries should seek to adapt to it. They should be prepared for the possibility that there will be additional requests from the United States following this initial agreement on tariffs. And there needs to be an understanding that, yes, even though the E.J. Milling administration wants to see better relations with China, it may not be entirely up to them. A number of countries have wanted to see better relations with China. India, the Philippines, Japan. A number of countries have all tried to deepen their relations with China, only for China to behave provocatively in their waters or to impose penalties on them for questioning some of their practices. And all of those countries can relate to having felt the coercion from the PRC over the last several years. South Korea should not assume that that can't happen to them. Thank you.
And first of all, CFE is my hometown. I worked here a number of years ago, holding discussions. This is a discussion about libertarianism. Milton Friedman Day, we had a special celebration that day. We used to have events at the office. And we invited special speakers such as Professor Marcus Cole from Stanford University. I used to give a number of talks, and he's not here now, but the CEO, this is 2012. Okay, Chae Sung-no, he was speaking at one of the events that I organized for CFE. And this is where I really got my start with North Korean refugees. So this is Lee Hyun-so. The year before she gave her TED Talk, she gave a talk at CFE. She's the first North Korean refugee to give a TED Talk. And this was September 28, 2011. This is Andrei Lenkov, one of the leading scholars on North Korean issues. This is Kim Jong-ho, who was then the CEO of CFE. Walter Klitz was with the Naumann Foundation. Donald Kirk was a reporter. And we even did a rap video back then. Have you seen it? Okay, if you look on the internet, We Can Do It was the title of the rap video. And after I left CFE, they also featured me in the magazine that they started after that. 2032 was the magazine title. And that highlighted my work with North Korean refugees. Now, my question, a little bit different than what Rob did. The theme is, why hasn't there been a revolution in North Korea? And this question is asked very often whenever we hold an event featuring North Korean refugee speakers. Now, here's a list of Kim Jong-il's official enemies list, and I'm on it. This is from a book that was published about 11 years ago. And I've been called the American known in North Korea because of my work with North Korean refugees. Not exactly true, but there's some truth to it. Now, why hasn't there been a revolution? I have two main theories. Number one is that North Koreans and North Korean refugees are resisting the regime, but those of us born in freedom do not recognize it. The second main point that I will make is that revolution will happen internally. What those of us can do on the outside is send signals of support to North Koreans who are inside North Korea who now they don't know that people are advocating for their freedom. Now, preview. I'll discuss three main reasons there hasn't been a revolution in North Korea, three main ways North Koreans in North Korea have challenged the regime, and three main ways that North Korean refugees challenge the regime. Okay, first of all, challenge happens slowly. Does anyone recognize this photo? Soviet Union, exactly. And who is this? Boris Yeltsin. So Boris Yeltsin was standing on a tank. This was in 1991. This one is clear. What is it? Tiananmen Square, exactly. Now, I mention this because if you, my kind of title is You Can't Tweet Your Way to Freedom. So you look at East Germany, it took 40 years for the regime to collapse. The USSR took 74 years to collapse. American slavery took a long time to collapse, and then after that, there were still problems. There are other movements, gay rights movement, animal rights movement, feminism, environmentalism. Arab Spring became Arab Winter, and Korean unification, the 80th anniversary now of the division between the two. And Korean democracy took more than 4 decades. So it takes a long time for change to happen, and it's taking even longer in North Korea. Now, revolutions are complex. There's an analyst named Jack Goldstone who says that revolutions take several different ingredients to happen. One is you need a unifying ideology, you need an unstable social equilibrium, widespread discontent, and the one that I focus on is a favorable international environment, which is something that North Koreans are unaware that there are people advocating for their freedom. So revolution does not happen easily. It takes time for it to happen. And even when it comes, many people are not happy. So last year was the 70th anniversary of the Brown versus Board of Education decision, which outlawed segregation in the USA. 70 years later, 1 in 3 black people say that integration didn't help black students. The Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, and a majority of Russians regret the collapse, according to a poll. East Germany collapsed in 1989, and now there's nostalgia for old East Germany, where people are looking back on it and have some regret about what has happened. Now, 3 main reasons there hasn't been a revolution in North Korea. Number 1, and this is according to Jang Jin-sung, author of the book Dear Leader, former North Korean psychological warfare officer. He says that leading countries treat North Korea like it is a normal country. And he says they expect North Korea to give up their nuclear weapons. He says they're not going to do it. Number 2, he says that North Korea, every action they take is to buy time for themselves. Okay? So they're not looking for reunification. They're not looking to deal with other countries. They're just buying time for themselves. A second reason that there has not been a revolution in North Korea is that people look at the North Korean regime and they look at it as just like a one-man regime, but actually what one analyst said is that it is a selectorate, that the leaders are protected by others, but people don't think about them. They only think about the leader of the country and, what's their haircut and how much do they weigh and do they like to watch Western movies. Now, a question I like to ask is, what would you tell Kim Jong-un if you had a chance to meet him? If you could meet Kim Jong-un, what would you tell him? What's that? Stop developing nuclear weapons. Okay, anybody else?
I'll say, I feel for you.
You feel for him.
I imagine if I were in his shoes, I don't think there are many options that I can choose to survive other than doing what he's doing.
Okay, so you'd have some sympathy for him, the role that he's in. Okay, anybody else?
What are you afraid of?
What are you afraid of? Okay, all right, my answer, what would I tell Kim Jong-un if I had a chance to meet him? Nothing. I would tell him nothing because he has his own country. He can do whatever he wants. Why would he listen to me? So if I met the CEO of KFC and I said, please stop killing chickens, what would he tell me? Get out of my office. If I met the head of the mafia and I said, please stop committing crime, what would he say? He would probably pull out his gun. Get out of my office, okay? So if I tell the North Koreans, stop killing North Koreans, what would they say? That's our family business. There's no reason for us to stop. Okay, now the third reason North Korea has not had a revolution is its guilt by association. And I will refer to Yeonmi Park when I talk about this. So are you familiar with Yeonmi Park? Okay, so Yeonmi Park rose to prominence in October 2014 when she gave a speech at One Young World. Actually, I was her coach to help her get prepared to give that speech. She was a student in our organization. We had a podcast together. We worked together really closely during that time. And she says we're one of the turning points to help her out of the darkness. Okay, so she gave a YouTube talk where she talked about the reasons that people don't fight back against the regime. And she said, number 1, if you're part of the elite, you may be aware of what's happening, but you cannot risk your family being destroyed by the regime. So that's one reason that some of the elite do not fight back. And then there's a second class of the elite that they're unaware of what's happening. They're just going along to get along, so they don't fight. Then she mentioned the common people, that many of them are aware, but they lack the means to escape from the country. And then the second reason for the common people is that they're unaware. They're starving. They're barely surviving. So they don't care about what's happening. So they're not going to fight back. Tae Young-ho, anyone familiar with him? Okay, Tae Young-ho. So he was a former deputy ambassador of the North Korean government and based in the UK, and that's him along with Song Mi-han, who's here in the audience here. So we wrote this book together, Green Light to Freedom. So he says that criticism sessions are at the core of how North Korea's society of oppression is maintained. So self-censorship along with mutual censorship are used to create a type of human who bows down to the regime. So that's the third reason. Okay, and then Jang Jin-song said that escaping North Korea means you betray not only your country, but also your family. So the guilt by association is the third reason that North Koreans do not fight back. Now I want to refer to a couple of prominent Americans. Frederick Douglass, who's the one in the middle? Rosa Parks, and Thurgood Marshall, okay, the lawyer. So Martin Luther King Jr. is known for this speech, I have a dream. I've even had North Korean refugees try to tell me about this speech, like I didn't know about it. But people often don't recognize this other side of Martin Luther King Jr., the one that he was causing trouble across America for 13 years, that he was arrested many times. Would he have been fighting so hard if he knew that his entire family would have been executed? If he knew that he would have been killed immediately? Well, in North Korea, that's what they do. They don't put you in jail. If you are a threat to the state, you're killed and your family is killed. So that's the third reason that there's not been a revolution in North Korea, because of guilt by association. Okay, so those are the three. Leading countries treat North Korea like it's a normal country. They focus on one main leader, and the 3C guilt by association strategy. Now, there are three forms of resistance within North Korea. And these come from a North Korean refugee named Sherry Yang. She escaped through China and then down to Thailand, but she went directly to the USA. She was also a student in our organization when we were first getting started. She gave a TEDx talk that we helped organize, and so and she has a YouTube channel. She pointed out that there have been uprisings in North Korea. She pointed to a prison uprising in 1987. She pointed to a coup attempt against Kim Jong-il in 1991, and also an incident in 1996, 1997. Everybody who was associated with that was killed by the North Korean government. Okay? So North Korea doesn't wait to see if a movement is going to get larger. They just kill everybody associated with it. A different source named Andrew Jackson pointed out that there have been limited market uprisings in North Korea, and that if you think about it, in North Korea, there's no internet connected to the world's internet, only intranet. There's no Zoom, Skype, Google Meet, or other ways to connect with the world. There's no Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, all these. It's illegal to make a phone call. Despite this, North Koreans still engage in these activities. So that is another way that they are resisting the regime. The third form of resistance by North Koreans is to take their bodies out of North Korea. One of the books that we published, the author said that escaping from North Korea is a revolutionary act. So the fact that they've taken their bodies out of the country is a form of resistance. They cannot fight against the regime directly. And those who escape, terrible things can happen to them. Get beaten by the regime, cruel ways that they will abort the children if they suspect that the mother has a baby with a Chinese man. Okay. So 3 forms of resistance within North Korea: limited uprisings, learning about the outside world and engaging with it when possible, and escaping from North Korea. Then finally, 3 ways that North Korean refugees challenge the regime. One is activism. So I've helped send air balloons directly to North Korea. There are some North Koreans who do it despite it being illegal. They will send air balloons to North Korea, CDs, DVDs, USBs. Okay, and so my 2 theories, as I said, North Koreans and North Korean refugees are resisting the regime, but many of us who are born in freedom don't recognize it, and that revolution will happen internally, and those of us who are outside can send them signals of support with our words and actions. That's it. All right. And our website is lovefsi.org, and you can always contact me.
The first major policy change that they are enacting is the shipbuilding policy. They're trying to demonstrate their value to the United States and its goals for security by demonstrating their ability to build ships. America at its capacity, its industry, the industrial base, as we say, has deteriorated quite a lot in the last several decades, especially since the end of the Cold War. And so South Korea is attempting to demonstrate its usefulness that way. Other policies regarding change toward the United States, I think we are really just waiting to see. First of all, there's a meeting scheduled between President Lee and President Trump on Monday, I believe. And at that point, I think it'll be very interesting to see how they interact on a personal level and what is suggested there. And so I think the major challenge for Lee's government in this term is going to be demonstrating South Korea's continued ability to take care of itself and its own defense. I think that's what the U.S. administration wants to see primarily, is more and more of its allies and partners that can defend themselves and which are not going to be reliant on the United States. That's the major change that I think this administration in Seoul is going to emphasize. The current state of relations between the United States and Korea are good, but a little bit questionable because we are, again, waiting to see their interactions. And also, in the conversations that I have had across Korea the last several days and the last couple of weeks, what I have heard consistently is that if you look at the Moon Jae-in cabinet, like the National Security Advisor, the Foreign Minister, the Defense Minister, many of them are very supportive of the alliance. They believe in the alliance and they want to see it continue. But there are others within Minjudang who feel differently. And many of them want to see better relations with China, and they want to see a Korea that is more independent in its foreign policy choices. And some of the decisions that the American administration could make in the coming weeks could prove them correct. Let's put it that way. It might make them feel like we were proven correct if we are not treated fairly by the United States. They could be proven correct in that they feel they are not treated fairly by Tokyo. So they want a change of direction in South Korean foreign policy, and I think it is going to be very important that the governments in the United States and also in Japan not prove them correct. Key changes that might affect mutual cooperation. In addition to, you mean mutual cooperation between the US and Korea. Okay. In addition to what I just mentioned with the United States and Japan, there's also China. So another thing that I have consistently heard in the last few weeks is that China continues to behave provocatively in the West Sea with illegal structures, with the creation of fishing structures there, and the dual purpose for those. China says that it wants to have good relations with other countries and that it does not want to meddle in other countries' affairs, but oftentimes the way it conducts itself in other countries is very contrary to that statement. They do frequently meddle in other countries' affairs, especially when other countries make decisions that it feels threaten its interests, like the THAAD missile defense system, for instance. That the penalties that arose in response to that would have to constitute an interference in South Korea's system and how South Korea governs itself. So I said earlier that there's a possibility that the decision to have better relations with China will not be South Korea's choice to make necessarily. Many countries, South Korea, the Philippines, India, Australia, South Korea from 2017 onward were not countries that were looking for a dispute with China, but China gave them one anyway. The idea that the United States will eventually, having secured a tariff agreement with the South Koreans and having secured a shipbuilding agreement with the South Koreans, will keep coming back and keep saying, we want more, you need to pay more for your defense. And the idea that they will just keep coming and one day Lee Jae-myung will not be able to say yes because his party and his movement won't allow it is something that keeps me as a supporter of the alliance, awake at night in a way, because that is the sort of thing that that's the sort of thing that could undermine the alliance more than spending too much or anything North Korea could do. That's going to undermine the alliance in a way that our adversaries cannot. So it's my hope that there will be voices within the administration in the U.S. who are going to continue to discuss the value of South Korea and who are going to position it as a valuable partner and make sure that the demands that they face are reasonable.
First of all, maybe I was a bit pessimistic with my response earlier. I'll say that I'm also a columnist with the Korea Times. I wrote a 5-part guide for people about getting involved. First step is educate yourself. That means watch the videos, read the books, gain an understanding. Okay. The second point is get involved with an organization. Okay. At almost any North Korea refugee organization, of course, get involved with ours would be the best solution, but you're going to learn lessons. You're going to learn valuable things from that experience. Then the third thing is take up a leadership role, because then you're going to lose your innocence. Before then, it's going to be like, oh, I just want to help, I'm going to make a difference. But then you're going to see the reality that it's not easy to make a difference. And then fourth is fundraise for that organization, because of course it's good for you to give your time, but you should leave something behind with the organization. And then fifth is mentor and bring other people in. That will probably take at least 2 years, but you'll learn lots of lessons during that time. You'll see that it's difficult to make a difference, and you won't just think, oh, I can just get involved and Kim Jong-un is going to collapse overnight. Now, I have a petition that's online at change.org, and in this petition, I call on Western governments to be more open and welcoming of North Korean refugees. When North Korean refugees were trying to escape during the 2010s, the United States is a country that was making it very difficult for them to get into the country. So the U.S. has accepted about 220 North Korean refugees, but according to one report in 2010, 238 North Korean refugees applied to the USA, but 107 of them, about 45%, withdrew their applications during the process because it was taking so long. In 2021, Canada had about, in 2016, Canada had about 970 North Korean refugees. But by 2021, it had fallen to 775. That's because in the year 2018, Canada expelled about 240 North Korean refugees. It was processing the expelling another 512. So the numbers have dropped because Canada had closed its doors. The Netherlands, Belgium, France, these are other countries that rejected most of the applications from North Korean refugees during the 2010s. So sign my petition, change.org, just type in my name, Casey Lartigue, and it will pop up. So far, only about 350 people have signed it. I went to Canada last year. I wanted to go there and say, hey, look at this. All these people support letting North Korean refugees in, but actually, I didn't have that many to show. So anyway, so first of all, 5-step process, and then sign my petition.